Hi and welcome to another tutorial from Blender Insight, and this time I was thinking that we should do these hexagonal tiles. And I see two things when I see pattern like this. So one is that it's symmetrical, and that means that I try to make the UV so that we have 0 in the center. And the next thing I see is that it's type of round shape, and when it's round shape like this, when I try to make flowers or a cog or something like that, I often use polar coordinates. I think polar coordinates will work fine for this pattern as well. So let's start right away by pressing Shift A, input, go to texture coordinate to get some UV, and we have a lot of tiles, so we have the scale, so Shift A. Then we go to converter, vector math, and then we can put in the scale here. We can put it to 8 or something, and it looks like this right now. So next thing we would like to do is to split it up. So I press Shift D, put this into fraction, like that. And then I have 8 times 8 tiles in this example here. And next step is to put in some math here to move the 0 to the center. So I just press Shift D, do some subtract of 0.5, then I multiply this by 2. So we get this like this, and that is because when I do a subtraction, I change this to be negative 0.5 to positive 0.5, and I get the 0 in the center. But then I increase it by multiply by 2, so we get a complete 1 to 1 situation here. And now we have the base to create something. So I will start to create these polar coordinates, and you can do that in 2 ways. So you can use a texture, so Shift A, go to texture and use a gradient texture. And when I use a gradient texture, I go to radial here and I get this shape here. And here we have then 0, and it goes up like this until we have a 1 here. And that works fine for creating flowers and everything. But in this case, I would like to have straight edges. And to make straight edges, I need some math formula in here where I use cosine and so on. And then this is not a good starting point. I can convert this so we can use it, but then I can do the base thing anyway. So I don't need this. I can create it from scratch. So I will do that. I will create this from scratch. I take away the gradient texture, and I use something called arctangent 2 instead. So Shift A, then I go to converter, math, and I change this to arctangent 2, because that will also give us a radial pattern that we need for our polar coordinates. So I will now split this to be able to use it for this. So I just drag it out here, and then I write separate XYZ, and take the X to the bottom and take the Y to the top. And if I use the arctangent 2, we get this pattern. So as you can see, it's still rotating, but we have a higher and a lower number than if we are using the gradient texture. So it starts with the positive 3.14, so pi, and then it rotates like this, and we get 0. It continues in a negative scale, and we have a negative pi here. I would like everything to be positive, so I just add 3.14 into this. Shift D, add, and then we can use this driver, so we put in this, and after that I just write pi. And now everything is positive, and the lowest number is 0, and the highest is then 2 pi. The next thing is to start thinking about the edges, and we have 6 edges, so we add that in here. So Shift A, input value, and we can write 6 here. And I will do this flexible because you can use what I do now to create patterns where you use triangles or pentagons, octagons, whatever you want. But in this case it's hexagons. So I do it like this by purpose, put it out a little bit on the side. But to get this to work now, I need to divide 2 pi with the amount of edges. So I put in a division, Shift A, convert the math, and change this to divide. And we have these 6 edges, but we need to put in a driver of 2 times pi here to have it like this. So then we can divide it with the amount of edges that we have, and then we divide these two together. So Shift D and put in divide and put that in here. So now we have it like this. And next step I would like to do is to split this up into static triangles. So to make them static, I can use something like round or floor, and I think I will use floor. But to get it from get it all the way up, then I will add 0.5 to round it up. So Shift D and then add 0.5 here, and now I will add a floor. And as soon as I put in the floor here, you can see that we now get static triangles that we can use to put everything together. And the next step I would like to do now is to make this so that every piece of this, we have 6 triangles, so to say, that every triangle will be the same here. So to make that, I do like this. So I multiply with the amount of edges that we have, but then I take this information and subtract that with the rotation. So then we get exactly the same. So I just move it up here and put in a subtract here, Shift A, convert the math, subtract, and take it like this. And now you can see that we get something here that is similar. So this is similar to this, and that is similar to that, and that is similar to that, and that is similar to that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things, or we have 12 different things. So now we need to fix that so we only have 6, but you can see that there are 6 exactly the same pattern, so to say. So this is a really great start. Here we can continue, and now we need to cut it so it just doesn't continue. And to cut things in polar coordinates, you often use the length. So we put in a length here like this, and then if I just take a look at length, it looks like this. So we have something that is 0 here, and it goes out to be like 1 here. So if you subtract the result we got with this, then you subtract more and more and more. So you like cut the edges. So let's say that you had done it like this, you put in a subtract here and a length here, you cut the edges, so you get these nice flowers or whatever you want. But we don't want flowers or propellers or something like that right now. We would like to have straight edges, so we need to do it in some other way. And the way to do it is to find a value that we can subtract this with in a better way. So what we do is we put in a multiply here, and then of course everything will go back to the way it was before, because we cannot multiply the way out of this. We need something here that then cuts this. So if we add a cosine here, so let's see, find the cosine, then we suddenly have what we need, because it increases right away, but it decreases equal. So you can see it dark here, it's dark here, and dark here. And since it increases equally on all the sides, then we can use that as a hexagonal pattern. So all we have to add is something like less than or greater than or something like that, and then we get it like this. So now we have this pattern here, and now I can show you what I meant by putting the value outside here for the edges. So if I write 4, I get 4. If I write 5, I get 5, and so on. So you can put in whatever you want here to create straight edges here. And when you put in something here, like I put in 6 now for hexagon, then the value that I use for the cosine, the maximum value that comes out here, is then pi divided by 6 or pi divided by 7 or something like that, which fit a cosine perfectly. So it will always, regardless of the amount of edges you put in, be straight edges when you put in the length here and do the multiplier less than or something else here, but to cut the lines anyway. So this is a good start, but if I now increase the less than here, you can see now that the top and the bottom are touching each other and the sides not, because it's higher compared to the width. And the amount, the difference here between the width and the height is square root of 3. You can find that using the Pythagoras or using some trigonometry, since all of these are like 30 degrees. But you don't have to calculate it, you just have to know that it's square root of 3 when it comes to a hexagonal. So we can use that and increase the UV a bit. But we also have something else that we need to think about, and that is that we need to move it in the X direction a bit. So we have done this part, now we need to do this part where we move it. But we can take it like this, that we do this, then we leave everything black here, and then we take next step and so on. So we just do this one and we do this one and we leave these blank, and we just do everything here as a node group, and then we can use that new node group 2 times and get everything to work. So the next step is to make this black and make this distance perfect, and that we can do here by increasing, instead of just using a square here, we increase by using the square root of 3 in the y direction. So to do that, we just change this into a modulo like this, and here I then add combine, so shift A, convert combine XYZ, and as I said before, X should just be 1, but this should be square root of 3, so we can just press shift A, go to converter math, and here we have the square root, so select the square root and press 3 and put that to the y. And now we have this, and if we look very close, you can see now that it cuts here in the bottom, so it's not perfect, and that is because we need to change this as well, so that comes to the center, and that is just to take half the value of what we have here. So if I just take this one, shift D, and divide that by 2, that should be half of this value. So if I put that here, you then have perfect edge here or corner, and you also have a perfect corner here, and the space between here will now be just perfect, the square root of 3. So now we have this, and that is really good. So we can just take this part here and do a node group out of it, and I think we do it like this first. We will change some things later on, I think, but we just keep it like this. So everything after the texture coordinate and before the principal, you select like this and then press Ctrl G. So then we have it in here, and now we can just press tab, so we have it here, so like this. We can rename this, so go to properties here, and we can call this hexagon, hexarows, something like that. doesn't have to be so complicated. So now we have that, but we would like to be able to do some changes here, like the scale or move it, some offset and so on. So we go into this again by pressing tab, and we need a scale, so we drag the scale out here. We also need to be able to move this. So to move things, you just add before everything else. So Shift D to copy this one, put it in here, and change it to add. So if I now change it in X direction, you can see it moves in the X direction, and if I change it in the Y direction, it moves in the Y direction. So we can then put this to 0 and this to 0, and then we do combine here. So Shift A, converter, combine XYZ, put that into this, and then I can just drag this to here and drag this to here, and I can go here to group and double click on the X and write offset X, so we know that. And we can do the same, double click and offset Y, so we have that in. So that is things that we need to have, I think we can just start with that. We can change more things later on, but that would be a good start. So I press tab now, so we have that in, and now we can change stuff here, and that is perfect because that we need. And now we need some new hexarows, so Shift D and copy that and use the UV here. And now we need to change the offset and then put these two together. So Shift A, converter, math, and right now when I just have this value, I can just put in like a maximum or something, so we just keep the white. So let's do that, and we need to change the offset, and we need to change the offset in the Y direction as well. So the offset in the Y direction is what? It's the same amount as we used here, meaning the square root of 3. So Shift A, and then go to converter, math, go to square root of 3. So then we have that, and that could be in the Y direction. Right now nothing happens because we need to make that half, so we need to divide it. So Shift A, converter, math, and if I then divide it by 2 and change this, you can see not so much because we are changing. No, we do like this, so 0. Yes, now you can see when we have it like this, it's now moved in this direction, but we also need to move it in the X direction. So to make that happen and to make this in a good way, we do it like this. We need a scale to make everything work in a good way here. So Shift A, and then we go to input value, Shift A, input value, and we put in the scale here, so it could be 8, and now I think we could get something to work here. So we take away that for a moment, can put it in later on, and we take this like that, 0.5, and now I take and multiply this, Shift D, multiply with this value in the Y direction, and now you see what happens. And I will just use this for since it's a half the value, I can just put that to X, and we get this. So now I have it, and if I change here, everything is not changed, and that is because we of course need to connect this into the scale of the top and the bottom here. So we put that to this one, and we put it to this one. So now we have something that works. So now we can scale, and we have this hexagonal pattern here. So can we do more stuff with it? Yes, of course. This is just like a mask, so we have black and white, but this is now going up and down. So we can add stuff like that into our output for the hexagon rows here. So now we have at least the hexagon, and now I go in by pressing tab. So we have this here, and now we have a lot of stuff here, and we can go to end and we can call this mask. So the value at the top, double click here, and you can just write mask like this. So then we know that this is the mask. The next thing we might want to have out is the base value before the less than. So we can put that in, and we can call that factor. So put that in, and we call this fac, F-A-C. So now we have the factor in as well. But we might also would like to have the UV here, so we can add like a texture or something like that. So can we get in the UV? Yes, we can. If I go here, so we have this. Then if I do like this, Shift A and go to output and material output, you can always use more than one material output, but it's always the active that will be shown here. So if I now take this into the surface, you see how it looks. So we get this here, but what we would like to have is just the diagonal thing. We do not want it to be square. So we can combine the result that we have here with this one. So if everything is black, then nothing comes out. So we will try to make everything outside this square to be black. So if I just take and I can do this in different ways. One way is to just add mixed color. So I can do like this, Shift A, color, mixed color. So I do it here, put this in to the factor, and then I can put this like so. And now you see it's reversed. So okay, then we go put this to B, and then we make this black here. Can take away the clamp just to be certain. And now we get everything good here. So now we have the UV. The only thing that I also would like to have is to some cover on the edges, so we have some type of UV here as well. And we can use that. So here we have the scale and everything and the add, but before all of that we have a base UV. So in here we have the base UV from the start. So we can just take that into the result here to make everything in a good way. So then we do like this, that this result here, that was like a black and white image. So in this case you can see that this is the UV and the UV is on B, meaning that the hexagonal are in this case white and the rest is black. So we can use this to get the mix in the same way as we did here. So we can do Shift D and take this in here, but instead of using the factor from here, we take it from the complete start, put it into the B here, and now you can see that if I take this here, I get it like this, but if I now change this to A, I get it on the edges. So now I can make this black instead. So now it's the reversed here, and here we have like 0 to 1 as a normal UV, so to say. So that we can use. And now it's up to us to just combine these two together, so we use A and B in the correct way. So we can copy this one, Shift D again, and put this to one value and put this to the other value, and then just put this to the factor. And if we look at that now, we can see it looks like this, totally black. Don't be alarmed, just change these so we get it like that. And now everything is in a good way. So then we have it, and that we can just put out in the group out instead of having it at material outputs, we can put in it like this and call that UV. So we have a UV here. And now if I go out, I select this one, press out, then I have this thing here. So I have the mask that we have now. I have the factor. So if I press Shift D, go to this one, and then I put that in here. You can see that we can play with this. We can put in like minimum, and then we have it like that. And this is really good if we want to do the tiles like this. So we get some edges of everything, and we can play with it. So we can do like a smooth minimum if we want to, where we play with stuff, and we can also add a map range. So converter, go to map range, and here we can then change the value, as you can see, so we get something that is nice looking and that we would like to have in the bump map. So if I use this, then I can put it in here and put in vector and a bump map, put that to the height like this, and you see now that we get this, and we don't have to have that height strength here. And you can of course then play with these values as you want to. Take everything away, just use a little bit, or make it smoother, or whatever you want. So it's easy to change it now to make something good out of it. Then we also have the UV, so we can use those two. So Shift A, converter, and our color and the mix color like this. And now we have this where we have black here and we have white here. So all we have to do here is to take this here, and then we take this to be here. But now we have half of this bar, so we can start with taking an add. So we have an add here, and we can take this one as well. So now we have this one and this one in here, so everything is in. And the thing that you can do now is that you can then add this one, so then we get the edges away. Let's see, I think we should do like this. We take away the UV for the edges. That will be a separate. That is why I was thinking a bit here, because it didn't look correct. So we go back again. We don't need edges right now, that we take later on. We only need to have this one. So we take away that one. That will be better. So now we have this. And if I now go back again and I connect these two and look at that result, it looks much better. So now it looks correct. So now we have all the UVs here, and we can add textures if we want to. And if we would like to have the other UV, well, it's just to use this and then the UV that we get from this one, and have that as the edges here. So we can take this one and do a mix out of that and use this maximum here like that. And here we can just put the UV that we have from the start. So we have it like this. So now everything gets correct here. And now we can just use that as a normal UV map. So if I would like to add a noise or texture or whatever, I can just put it in here. So Shift A, and then I can use a texture, and let me see, image texture, and we can just use the hexagons that we have here, put that as a vector, put that as the color, and now you see we have a lot of small hexagons inside the hexagon, since we use this as a normal UV here. So it's really easy to just play with everything. So doing it like this, or get the bump map, whatever you want. You can of course also do index changes on every one of these or rotate them, or whatever you want. But this is the base. So now you have this thing in, and if you want that pattern that I have here, that is mostly just to use the map range that we have and put in a color on that one. So converter, color ramp, take it from a maximum, put it to the here, and then start to play with the values here. So we have some yellow here, for instance, that is rather dark, something like that, and we have even darker in the top. So then I just drag it up, and then some middle color, so something that is a bit brighter here, and that could be a bit brown. Reddish something. So then we have it like that, and then we can of course play with the map range to make the edges a bit more narrow, like this. So you have a lot of different things you can play with right now. You can add whatever you want into this. It's rather easy to do it when you have the base like this. So hopefully you learned something today as well, and I just do as usual, say bye for now and see you later.